Hi, I'm Nick Rains from Leica Camera Australia. When we get a new firmware upgrade for our cameras, it's usually a bug fix or a few little tweaks here and there. But the latest firmware upgrade for the SL cameras and the Q cameras to version 4 has a couple of massive jumps in performance and facilities. So I'd just like to go through those with you just fairly quickly and just explain how they work, and also that there's a couple of quirks, a couple of things that you need to know to make them work properly. So let's get into it. I'm going to start, I'm going down the list of features that was sent to us as a press release, so no particular order of importance. Starts off with this Frame I/O facility. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a little bit like having your camera tethered to Lightroom, in that you shoot the picture and it goes on into Lightroom on your desktop computer. Well, this is a wireless version of that, kinda. So it's for collaboration with people who can't be present in your studio. You can hook your camera up to a wireless network, and then somebody who's viewing their Frame I/O account can log in and see the images that you shoot. As you shoot them, they're transmitted into a thumbnail screen. I've got a screenshot on the screen now which shows you what it looks like at the other end. But the important thing is they can be anywhere in the world. You can be shooting here in your studio and they'll see the still images and the video images that you're shooting almost in real time. Obviously you've got to take into account upload speeds. So for JPEGs and for DNG files, pretty much work straight out of the box. If you want to do video, there's a couple of things that you need to know about how the camera works. So let's go into video mode, and I need to go into the video profiles. So let me just go down to that, video profiles, profile 1 settings. And you'll see at the bottom, on the bottom row, third from the left, it says proxy on. That's a new box, and that needs to be on. Okay, what that's doing is that as the camera is recording, it's creating a lower res, highly compressed proxy file, and it's that file that gets transmitted because it's much more efficient in terms of size and obviously bandwidth. A full res 422 capture would just take up so much bandwidth it wouldn't work. So it's like a little thumbnail video. But because it's a separate file, it has to be recorded onto a separate card. So not only do you have to have proxy turned on in here, in the video profile, but you also have to have both card slots occupied. So one will take the proxy, the other one will record as normal. So just something that's not obvious when you use it. To turn it on, you go into connectivity. I'm not going to go through it all because I don't have at the moment a live connection to Frame I/O. It's a paid account and I don't have a use for it personally. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, I'll show you the screenshot before. So go into connectivity, not like photos, but Frame I/O, follow the prompts. So right now, if I hit setup, it will look for a wireless network in my studio. As you can see there, I will simply choose that wireless network, log into it with the password as normal. Then I go to my Frame I/O account and there's a facility called C2C that you need to activate. That will give you a code which will appear in the back of the camera, and then you know that the two are connected, and then when I shoot, those images will appear. So don't forget, for stills and video, stills, JPEGs, DNGs, it works just fine out of the box. For video, you need proxy set in your video profiles, and you need both cards in the camera. All right, that is all I want to say on that subject. Like I said, it is fairly self-explanatory, and I had no trouble getting it to work when I was just testing it out a while ago. Okay, next thing on my list, and this is probably the biggest deal, well, it's definitely the biggest deal, is a completely new autofocus system. The algorithms have been tweaked considerably. It's now faster, more stable, smoother. Everything about it just feels so much better. So they've reorganized the menus, and before you had the choice of spot, field, zone, multi-field, tracking, and then you had eye focus, head, body, and animal. Okay, that was one menu, and then you could have AFC, AFS, or manual focus. That has completely changed, and if you look on the back of the camera now and the new control center, you'll see I now have just 3, and zone. So it starts with field/spot, zone/multi-field, and tracking. And the field and spot have been joined together because the way it works now is that if you remember, you could change the size of the field. You press your finger on the screen and the field gives you two little corners, which you could either split your fingers, spread your fingers to enlarge it, or dial the dial, make it bigger or smaller. There were 3 settings, so large, medium, small. Now there's one below small, which is spot. So instead of going using the dial and going 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1, you can go 3, 2, 1 and then down even further to get spot. It's the same with zone. You've got 3 zone sizes. So let's say size 1, size 2, size 3, but you've now got a 4th size as you go up the sizes, which takes you to full screen, not just within the little arrows or the little diagonal lines. So let me show you how that works, because it's really, really cool how it's been implemented. Okay. Before I do that, the AF for eyes, head, body, animals, etc. is on its own menu. So they've been split. So the subject that you're focusing on, what it is, you know, head, eyes, whatever, or not, is now separate to your field and your zone. So you can have it working within the field or zone. So that means you can target your eye tracking. And if you think back to having 4 or 5 people in the shot at once and turning on head eye tracking, it found everybody's eyes, it found everybody's head, and you had to click the joystick or move the joystick to choose between them and then focus. That worked fine, but people photographing groups of people found it very difficult. Now you can narrow its attentions to a particular small zone, let's say, and only have it pick up eye and head within that. So you can aim your camera at a particular person in a group and have it track their eyes. Works brilliantly. Something you kind of have to try and see how it works. I don't have a person in front of me to photograph, but I do have a print of a person, which will have to do it. It works just the same. So if I just come out of the menus, there's my person, and you'll see the 2 boxes on the eye, one yellow, one white. If I click the joystick on the back, it will swap between the eyes. And when I press the shutter button halfway, it will focus on whichever eye I've chosen. So far, so normal. You'll see the diagonal lines around the outside. That's my zone. And I can hold my finger on the screen and it says adjust size, dial the dial, and I've got 3 zone sizes, 1, 2, and 3. You can see it even clearer if I move it to the side. But I also now have a 4th one. If I click one more using the wheel, it goes to, you can see the corner marks there. That's full screen instead of just the zone in the middle. And that becomes very important when I'm using eye and head tracking, because I can then have it sent to any face and any eye in the picture, just like before. But if I don't want it to see everybody, I can narrow it right down. And now if I move my zone across, let's say down to this vegetation down here and try and focus, look, it's focusing on the vegetation. There's the green boxes. It's not selecting or sensing the eye. But if I move my zone nearer to the face, then you'll see it's selecting the eye. Now, by default, the zone is set to a normal size zone. So if you're expecting it to pick up eyes anywhere in the frame like it used to, that will no longer be the case. If you want it to select eyes and heads anywhere in the frame, you need to change the zone size to full frame for that to happen, okay? Not obvious how that works until someone like me tells you. Now, just want to point out to you how quick this is. So I'm going to come into manual focus. That now allows me to use the focusing ring on the camera to defocus the image quite considerably. Okay, and as you'll see now, it's totally out of focus. Now, when I use the back button, because we're in manual focus, remember, bang, that is quick, and it very confidently picks up and focuses on the eyes. And you'll see if I put it into full view, full zone, make the zone bigger, there we go, just size, full frame, and focus, I can move anywhere in the frame and it will follow the eyes. Okay, so that works really, really well. But there's one more really cool thing which is not in the manual, and you wouldn't necessarily know it was there until, again, someone shows you. That is the idea that pressing your finger on the screen. I'll put it back into normal focus mode for a sec. And pressing your finger on the screen and dialing the wheel to change the zone size is, let's just say, a little bit clunky. You have to take the camera away from your eye, press, dial, etc. What if there was a quicker way of doing it? Well, there is. So I have on this button on the top right hand side, I have allocated a new custom function to that button. If I long press, you'll see a new custom function called AF frame size. So now with my eye to the viewfinder, I simply press that and dial the dial. And I can change my frame size, whether I'm in field or in zone, and then tap shutter button to set it. So that's a new custom function on whichever button you want, of course, and you just dial the dial to change it. So you can now operate that with the camera to your eye, click the function button, dial the dial, change the field size. So if you've got a bunch of people and you want to narrow it down to one person but still track their eye, you could then narrow your zone, or if you want it to catch everybody, make it wider. So however you want it to work. Really, really well thought out. Okay, what's next on my list? The frame rate. These are the more of the sort of housekeeping things, I suppose. The frame rate can be changed drop from 60 to 30 frames per second. That's the display, sorry, the refresh rate of the display. The faster it works, the more battery life it uses. So by dropping it to 30, it uses a little bit less battery life. If you've got fast moving subjects, you may see a bit of smear, may see a bit of wobble going on. That's why you have the higher frame rates. But if you want to absolutely save the most battery possible, you can drop it back. But I think the other thing which I was most surprised about, this is not a housekeeping feature at all, this is a major step forward, is multi-shot mode. Now, I've got an SL3-S here I'm using to demonstrate, which already has multi-shot mode in it, okay? Same as the SL2-S and same as the SL2. Now, when the SL3 came out, multi-shot mode was missing, and 60 megapixels on the sensor it was decided when the camera was released that was probably enough. Multi-shot mode was not implemented at the beginning, and there were discussions about it. I was involved in those. The rationale was you could only have so many things fitted into the camera when we release a new camera. We had to choose some over others. Let's see what the demand is, and maybe we'll put that back. Well, there was obviously demand, because now we have multi-shot in the SL3. Now, think about what that means for a sec. It's a 60 megapixel sensor. That gives you 241 megapixel capture. Not 250 megabyte image, but 250 megapixels. So it ends up about, I think it works at about 1.3 gigabytes on if you open up in Photoshop and look at the file size. It's humongous. Or more importantly, it's 19,000 about by 12,000 pixels, which is basically the size of a door, printing at 300 pixels per inch approximately. It's huge, and you can hand hold it. So multifunction works exactly as it worked before. There's been no changes to the way it works. It's just massive, and hand holding a 241 megapixel capture is absolutely insane when you think about it. And as long as your shutter speed is sufficient to hand hold it, combined with the stabilization of the sensor, because not only does it stabilize, not only does it do its little movement to do the multi-shot mode, it also stabilizes it at the same time. So I've done some images like a quarter of a second, eighth of a second certainly, handheld, that have been full resolution. And that is quite incredible. So the benefits of the tripod only start to come in when you get down to like a quarter, half, or 1 second. You can't go longer than 1 second, and you can't go higher than 1600 ISO, but that still gives you a pretty wide range of possibilities. And believe me, that the results are quite sensational. I can honestly say, having tested it against software upgrades, software up-resing, I should say, you can absolutely see the difference, particularly in micro detail. Whereas if you look at something resed in software, and it is very good, the software that's available, you start to see some little digital artifacts going on in very, very fine detail. When you've got a physical capture like this, you don't see that at all. So whilst normal size prints, you probably wouldn't notice a difference, when you start going up to the limit, you definitely will see the difference. So it's really nice to see that implemented. Other than that, there's some anamorphic video settings that you can use. Not something I ever use. If you're into cinematography and you know what anamorphic means, then there has been some new settings added to the camera. Honestly, I've never used anamorphic, so it's not something I can share my experience with. That is about it. It's a huge step forward. It's really more than a minor upgrade, and that autofocus system has been massively increased. It just feels so much better than it did before. As soon as you upgrade the firmware, if you've already got an SL3, you will notice that difference straight away. And the way it's been rearranged is very, very cool too. It just makes so much more sense. All right, that's it from me. Download the software, put it on your camera. If you don't like it, let me know in the comments below, but I guarantee you will, because it is a massive upgrade in so many different ways. All right,